Education is preparation for reparations.
UK Reparations Conference 2023, titled Charting a Pathway to Reparative Justice, a conference that also seeks to revisit the legacies of African enslavement and colonialism and suggest ways to defeat them. I also wish to use this opportunity to applaud all members of the All-party Parliamentary Group on Afrikan Reparations, civil society and advocates in the UK for the work that they are doing. We in the Caribbean have followed your work with admiration and also held consultations with some of you on dedicated visits to various parts of the UK to learn from your strategies and to share our strategies, as together we seek a united front to demand reparation on behalf of our ancestors. Today, I want to speak on decolonial education and reparation, the responsibility of universities, because education is central to our desire to chart a pathway to reparative justice. The rationale for my choice of topic is that in many parts of the world, but especially in the USA and Britain, we have seen attempts to marginalize African history and redefine, if you can believe it, the meaning of chattel enslavement, chattel slavery they call it. In an article in the Independent newspaper of Wednesday, 26 July 2023, race correspondent Nadine White told us that the University of Chichester had accelerated plans to pull the plug on its flagship African history course without consultation from its teaching staff or its students, leading to an online petition. The position of course leader Hakim Adi, Britain's first history professor of African heritage, also faced redundancy. Yet, students are reported as saying that there is no other program of study comparable to this course at a UK university. Yet widening the scope of Black history, as one observer put it, helps to unravel and unlearn many racial stereotypes and helps students of African descent to connect with their past history and culture. As we in Jamaica mark Heritage Month, and as Monday, October 16 was National Heroes Day, I remind this audience that Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Jamaica's first national hero, warned all of us that a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. That we can build those roots through education, as it is by education that we become prepared for our duties and responsibilities in life. If one is badly educated, he must naturally fail, and I guess at that time they didn't say and she, in the proper assumption and practice of his, let me put, her duties and responsibilities. Over in the USA, and you may have heard about this, a group of Texas educators have proposed to the Texas State Board of Education that slavery should be taught as involuntary relocation during second grade social studies instruction. The working group of 9 educators, including a professor at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, is one of many such groups advising the State Education Board to make curriculum changes. In 2022, the board considered updates to social studies instruction, a year after lawmakers passed a law to keep topics that make students feel discomfort out of Texas classrooms. Well, I have to say, the Mangamese was uncomfortable for our ancestors, put it mildly, and continues to be uncomfortable for those living with the legacies. There are uncomfortable truths that must force victims to demand reparation and perpetrators to pay up. But we must also, all over the Black world, engage in decolonial education and teach the truth as a way of building knowledge about why reparation, and gather more soldiers for Jah Army. Universities have a responsibility to push back against right-wing, unprogressive ideologies and changes that will do violence to our souls and that will disrespect the memory of our ancestors. Thankfully, the University of the West Indies is trying to engage in language deconstruction and reconstruction, as well as symbolic decolonization of its landscape. The monarch is no longer the UWI's visitor. Also, through its history departments on the various campuses, the UWI has made some contribution to the essential project of mental liberation from the shackles of the Mangamese. History, of course, possesses one of the greatest possibilities for anchoring people emerging from a colonial past to a more positive beginning, helping them to deal with the epistemic violence of the imperial project and providing alternative words for the unbridled, indecent colonial bad words and deeds of people like Thomas Carlyle, James Anthony Froude, Edward Long, Lady Nugent, Thomas Tisload, Elizabeth Fenwick, and other European scribes who were racist in their descriptions of Africans and their culture in the Caribbean. Imagine the potential damage of Fenwick's views that blacks in Barbados are a sluggish, inert, self-willed race of people, inaccessible to gentle and kindly impulses. That's a quote from that writing. The production of alternative knowledge was a particularly critical aspect of what Bill Ashcroft et al. Referred to as the counter-colonial resistance. But the Caribbean has been affected by a historically constructed image, I should say, that still influences self-knowledge as well as global attitudes towards its citizens. This image, paraded as truth and knowledge, was a product of the minds and pens of generations of writers from the North Atlantic system who appropriated the project of producing knowledge on the Caribbean for overseas consumption, introducing the Caribbean and its people to a wider public. The knowledge produced had a discrete political purpose to support European imperialism and to dislodge and disorient the Caribbean in the same manner that it did Africa and the Orient, following Daniel Naboderi's and Edward Said's formulations. Caribbean scholars were forced to engage in a project of reconstructing and reconstruction, constructing indigenous interpretations of the Caribbean experience, fashioned by explicit formulations and theoretical constructs, and offering the antithesis to the imperialist view of the Caribbean world. Building on the examples of the pioneers, historians, many trained at the University of the West Indies in the post-independence era, sought to carry out Marcus Mosiah Garvey's and Bob Marley's charge that in liberating ourselves from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds. Many in the post-colonial era saw the possibility of using history as an emancipatory tool, perhaps believing in Marcus Garvey's concept that history is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. It is still a work in progress at the University of the West Indies, as not everyone is at the same state of consciousness, but we have come a long way over these 75 years, and we have many years of change to come. Thank you very much.
Education is preparation for reparations.